I know you're not happy with today's subject.
It's not that I'm not happy. It's just, you know what Meg does to me? Almost every time we do a podcast, I don't get told.
I told you yesterday.
You have told me last night. It was night, man. It was like 9 o'clock. My brain is non-functional.
True, I don't think you actually responded coherently.
Not
so,
coherently.
I believe you. You didn't actually know. I want to talk about education.
Okay.
Welcome to the Chronicles of Caffeine and Ambition, hosted by the Cinder Sisters. I'm Stacey.
And I'm Megan. And what we are here to do on our podcast is tell you about business, life, families. Essentially, everything that we do, we want to share with you because we have a lot of self-confidence. We've learned a lot of self-confidence over the years.
We sure have.
And we want to share that with you. We want to show you how.
Let's do this.
It's a bit of a touchy subject.
It is a touchy subject. But I mean, I guess this is a good segue into the whole subject. That for me, education, when you talk about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, because all I think about is school. Like, that's the only thing I think about. But I mean...
And it sets you off.
And it totally sets me off. But I'm also not a person who can sit for hours in a day and hours and be okay with learning something. I'd totally go off in la la land. And that's maybe why I also do okay not knowing about what it is that we're going to talk about in the podcast, because then for me, it's like, I can just rhyme off the seat of my... no, not rhyme. It's not rhyme.
Fly up to your
Fly,
head.
yes.
I mean, there is a part to be said for planning it, and I should tell you ahead of time, but there's also a part that sometimes our first, no, I'm not going to say sometimes, every single time, I feel like our first go is the best.
Yeah, when we try and do second takes of things, it ends up being like forced and like fake, and yeah, so no, generally we do better on our first go around.
And funny because I know that school sets you off. I know that like an institutionalized set schedule sets you off. So maybe that's why I don't tell you what the plan is ahead of time.
Freedom!
It's a good point. Stacey's favorite movie is Braveheart.
It is, for lots of reasons.
Maybe not now. I don't know that it was. It was when we were
Always
young.
Always was, yeah.
No, okay. So what I want to talk about is the idea when we were growing up that education, secondary, post-secondary specifically, was the be-all and end-all. You were no one and nothing if you didn't do post-secondary education.
100%.
And things have changed so dramatically lately that I see a divide between do post-secondary, you aren't anything if you don't do it. And the people fighting against it saying it's not necessary. It's the institutionalized way of creating debt.
Oh yeah.
It's a very polarizing conversation, but I think it's really important because I did do some post-secondary, but not for the right reasons.
And I did not.
Did not do any at all.
I did not do any at all. I did high school, and that was it. And then went out and worked for myself. I was self-employed from then on in.
I mean, you were self-employed by like 16.
Never mind, I was self-employed by 16. But as my husband often tells me that I am a anomaly. I guess if I want something, I'll work hard for it, and I will work 24/7 for it.
Because we've been told for 50 years that you can't be that?
I would say yes, but I don't think everybody's going to agree with me. But I mean, I think if you want something really bad, you're actually going to go for it. Like if you want to be somebody, go somewhere, do something, you'll figure out how to do it. I don't think that's just a me thing. I mean,
well, even when we, like I said, when we were growing up and when we went through school, we went through high school, and the assumption was if you actually want to do something with your life, if you want to not be a hobo on the street, you would go to post-secondary education.
You must have that piece of paper that says, I went and I accomplished and I did.
But so even at that point, we would hear that on one end, but then we would also hear the other side where, oh, blah, blah person that I know started at the bottom and rose up the ranks. And like, I find the two separate ways of thinking of it so dramatically different. And it's like, you're in one camp or you're in the other camp. And the separation between the two just blows my mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I do remember in high school, our guidance counselor at the time was just, she loved math and science. Like math and science gurus.
You were nobody. You were going to become nobody. I had the same conversation with her. Unless you went and you did all your math and all your science. And if you couldn't do it, you were just flunking, and you might as well just go get like a job at the restaurant down the street.
Science was not my thing. And I wasn't bad at math. So, I mean, but that was the thing. I was sitting there in the office and I'm like, oh, okay, I mean, I feel like you're telling me that only your kids are amazing and you need to do what my kids are doing. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to do math as a post-secondary education.
No. Can you imagine me in a math course?
Or science in biology.
I might have got kicked out of my first science class, grade 11. They kicked me out because I was laughing. At the very first class, the very beginning of the first class, he was not a happy person in general. So, anyways, I was going to say long story short, but it wasn't even a long story. That's exactly what happened. That's all it was. Yeah, he was not a happy person and he didn't like that I was laughing. And out you go. I think there's so many other options. And I guess there was so many other schools we could have gone to that probably would have helped with, like, for me, an art background of some form or a dance background of something in theater, anything that is not your regular math, science, history, geography, which at that time I couldn't care less about. So, I mean, then you also don't apply yourself because it's just not interesting. And then they just assume you need to apply yourself, whether you like it or you don't like it. Well, that doesn't help and it doesn't give anybody passion to actually push those things that I have never used trigonometry since I did it in school. Never.
I don't think I would have even remembered the word trigonometry.
I only remember because my kids did it not long ago. So. And they were like, what help? I'm like, that's a Chris question. Absolutely don't ask me those things.
I am terrified for that time when my kids are old enough to do those classes.
Yeah, no.
Good for you. You go there.
You go see Uncle Chris.
This is some good numbers. No, we are selling ourselves short 100% on some of that. But that is how it feels as a teenager.
Okay, so I guess for me, what the biggest thing is and why maybe it makes me feel upset is because I didn't realize that emotional education or emotional intelligence was such a thing. Because when you're going through school, it's not a thing. That's not, you're stupid. Like, that's what I felt like my entire way through high school was that I wasn't good at much. I could draw. Well, that's not going to get you anywhere else. You're going to be an artist. But then my art teacher also told me that I wasn't as good as the other guy in the class, so I might as well just quit drawing. And just like there was no such thing as emotional intelligence. And if we look back now, because I think it's broadened a little bit more now, but it is still it's not something that is taught. I mean, they also don't want to teach that.
Soft skills. The curriculum has been set up in that way for so long that changing it is difficult.
Oh my gosh, imagine overhauling a system that's been around for how many years? Like, oh my goodness. And a lot of people still are very much, it needs to be that way. Yeah, I think so many other kids would excel if you figured it out. And I know other countries do it way better than we do.
Some flexibility, I think, would be it. Like, you hear about, I know there are Montessori schools, there are even the private schools. It's more of a specifically guided approach to each child, which is dramatically better for the kids who don't fit in that specific mold. Yeah. But to me, I do honestly feel like almost every kid doesn't fit in that mold. Where did that mold come from? They wanted the mold back in the day because they needed you to work in a factory and just churning out just ghosts. We need workers. And that's it. And now it's not working that way. And it hasn't evolved enough to now work with how society is currently going. I mean, we haven't, like the computer courses I took in school. Yeah. I would laugh now if anybody tried to show anybody that's what we did. Isn't that how you use a computer? I mean, it's so far behind by the time you get out of school at the old way of doing things. It just doesn't work. That's hilarious, actually, because Mom always used to say when she was doing her computer classes were typing classes. So all she was learning was how to type, because at that time all she was going to be was a secretary. And maybe this is where we get it from, but Mom's comment was, I don't need to know how to type, I will have a secretary. So then when she told me this, however, 20 years ago, I was like, yeah, Mom, you have one, it's me. You had multiple children so that one of your children could be your secretary. Definitely. But I will say that watching her type with two fingers is excruciatingly painful, so I will push her out of the way. That's why Meg doesn't watch me type. I know we're being hard on post-secondary education, and I did do it. I took a diploma program and I took a post-diploma program, but I don't feel like it was worth it for the paperwork. Like, the idea of going to college and getting that piece of paper, now in hindsight, seems ridiculous. Mm-hmm. The only thing that I feel like it got me was the ability to actually speak in front of a class, which I didn't do well even at that time. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not saying that I automatically went there and all of a sudden I was great at it. I was terrible at it. Yeah. Terrible, and I hated presentations. I didn't argue with teachers. I bulldozed by teachers who were like, stand up and present, and I could barely speak. But all I learned from school, how I feel about it, is that I got these certificates, these diplomas. I did the post-secondary. I spent a lot of money, had a lot of debt, and I came out with something that I have never used since. A minor course in business because it was a pre-part of the schooling, and that was a great idea by that college. I just feel like I spent all of that time and all of that money to become a more mature person. Great. That's great.
Sure. Is some good party years? I mean, is that...
I used loans that they gave me to travel. Like, poor spending, too. That's a different topic. But, I mean, seriously, who gives that amount of money to kids?
They do, because it works well.
Somebody who has the interest on it. That's who gives that amount of money to kids. That
Correct.
answers my own question. I have such a hard time with it now. And, like, your kids are at that point. I have another little ways before I have to deal with are they going to post-secondary or are they not? And who knows what's going to change in the world in 8 to 10 years.
Who knows?
Who knows?
And it's worked well for my kids because one of them didn't go. Another one is going this year, and then another one's going next year and got into a university program, which they're ridiculously excited about. But I think that's right up their alley. That's totally up what they are like to do when they talk about it, they're passionate. And then had one that has done an apprenticeship program. So was in college, but mostly it was apprenticeship. And like they're beyond excited about what they do and what they were already doing it before they went for the apprenticeship program. But that's how they also work as a person. That's how they are able to learn. They're the same as me, where they don't, like this one doesn't learn hands-on sitting at a desk. Like
by writing a paper about it.
Not at all. Oh my gosh. But like dragged that one through school. That was painful. Especially being online because it was COVID for the last little bit. So having to deal with that was difficult because, as we all know, the programs are boring. The teachers, not all. Some of the teachers are boring and it's hard to learn, and especially when the teacher ends up getting this hate on for you or whatever it is, or you don't do well and then the teacher doesn't help and just, I mean, don't get me wrong, I would not want to be a teacher ever. Kudos to you who love being teachers. Because, wow, I could never, ever do that. But trying to deal with, let's say you have 30 kids in your class and all those different personalities, and each kid needs to be taught differently, but you don't have time to do that. That's not part of the curriculum. It doesn't work that way. So
it's not the individual's fault that the system is broken.
The system's broken.
Yeah. I guess that's a better way to put it. I'm not against post-secondary education. If that's your bag, great. That's incredible, because there are certain things that I would prefer my doctors be trained.
Fair.
There are certain things that do need more education, more learning, more training, that kind of thing. What I'm angry about is the funnel of all kids need to go into that.
Yeah.
When that is not how it works. It doesn't work for those 30 kids in that classroom to be all exactly the same. It doesn't work for the hundreds of kids in that school to all do the same thing in the end. I would love some flexibility. I would love some actual individualized thought on these are human beings that get to grow into fully adult human beings. That's why I'm angry about it.
Fair.
I was like, you don't want to have this conversation and you're going to get triggered about this education thing. And now I'm triggered about this education thing. You had plans to go to school.
Yeah, I had big plans to go to school. I was going to go to a design school and actually like do a costume course and create costumes for theaters. I thought that was going to be the greatest thing ever. And then I was like, oh no, the boyfriend showed up on the scene, of course. And so then I was like, no, I'm going to take a gap year and buy a car. And then the next year I'll go to school. Well, as we all know, I was definitely one of those like 90% who don't go on the next year. I didn't go. But I did go to what we call the School of Rose. So the seamstress who I was working for previously, I stayed on with her and then ended up, I mean, if you guys have watched the other podcast, then you know that this is how we started all the businesses. That was number one. I worked for this woman and then we ended up buying her business, and the amount that I learned from her was astronomical. It was actually how to tailor on real people. Everything you would learn at a school, but it was for real people. It wasn't on models.
Like learning from a real person in a real business.
Yes.
As opposed to in a classroom setting.
Correct. Yeah.
Which may have actually been better for you as a personality.
For me, I need that. And I know I need that now. I mean, back then, I think I always knew that a little bit. But definitely that is how I just learn best. I need to do it. I need to be hands-on. And I need to be in the trenches of whatever it is that we're doing to learn it. Yeah. I mean, theory, absolutely, goodness no. You lost me at the T.
I was like, what?
Beginning of theory. T, I might make it to the H. I might make it to the H of theory.
Maybe we should have gone to school. No, I'll equate it to like the things that we see now, the videos that we see now that are, if you want to do this in your business or you want to grow in this way, like if we have so many goals that we're working on, so if we're hard into one of them, and we'll see education or planning or videos, things that we're preparing for, and it's either you can do all of the planning on your own, which is very time consuming, or you can take this course and learn it in one go.
Yeah.
And I am never sold on one being better than the other. Partly just that worry that that course is not going to be the right one. Like there's definitely a part of that.
Fair, yeah.
But I guess it's very similar to how I see school, because what if that class is not the right thing? I didn't choose the right things to go to school for. I had originally planned to go for law clerk. Didn't.
That didn't happen.
Didn't happen. Changed my course load 3 times before I actually ended up at school. So this is exactly my same problem now. I'm like, we have this goal in the business and I could take this course to learn, theoretically, to learn how to do it quickly.
Yes.
Or learn it all on our own. And I feel like we trained ourselves to learn it all on our own and do it the hard way because we trust that we'll get the results out of it, as opposed to doing the course.
Taking the course.
And maybe we'll get the results and maybe we won't.
Right.
But we don't try the course because now we're against the system. We're not conspiracy theorists or anything.
No, not at all. No.
I know it was a hard conversation a few years ago because in your household it was a very dramatic, divided, yes school, no school.
I'm a go travel, do your high school, get your diploma, and I'm very much a go travel, put on a backpack and go live, meet people, see things, see how the world turns, not in the view of where you've lived for the past 10 years. I'm very much on that. And then when you come back, at that point, maybe you have a little bit more idea of what interests you. And it could be something that you have no idea about. It could be a job that you didn't even know existed. So I'm a big push for that. Now, dilemma is my partner is a go to school. You make it through high school, you leave for school next year. And this was a constant argument in our house. So much so that there was a point where we didn't really talk about schooling too much because it was always an argument. And now we've both somewhat come together. We're still, each kid is different. Like I said, one of the kids already went to school and another one is going this year. And so it's we have now left it up to them to be like, you decide. I mean, no matter what, you need a job, full-time job, to be able to afford things. You can't just live at home and then just twiddle your thumbs. Like, but we leave it to the kids to decide.
So how do you contain, like, you know how when we're talking about all these different things that we could do, we have all these different plans, but we never settle on one, so we never do anything.
Right.
So I absolutely think that that's the greatest way to go about it. If they want to do school, do school. If they don't, they don't. I absolutely feel like 17 is a little young to be deciding what you're going to do with the rest of your life. But in that same context, you're giving them the power to see where their life leads, which is great. But do they have that ability to know where their life could lead?
No, and I think 2 of them don't, and 2 of them did. 2 of them had a passion for the things that they're going for, and I think that's why it was a little bit easier for them to go. They need a little help, a little push, and to get them into the courses and that kind of thing, but the other 2 don't know. So I feel the other 2 are need to leave, need to go adventure and do life for a little bit, and then at that point, I'm hoping that they come back and be like, oh my gosh, I tried this thing and I absolutely love it.
So would you change anything
of what I've done?
Would you go back and do school?
Would
you do school now?
I would do different school now. Earlier I'd said that I didn't like geography and I didn't like history and that kind of thing in high school. Now would I go back and learn that? Yeah, like that totally interests me. Now I would go back and I would love to learn about housing and how they built it and architecture and that kind of thing. That is totally, I find that super interesting. But it's also, I mean, we're a long time later. And so as life changes, your interests change. And I think that's also something too where when they talk about in guidance or in schools and they're like, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? No. What? No. What do you want to do for the next little bit? That's going to lead you to the next life. Because I think that you need to keep the same job for your entire life. We're not in that society anymore. It doesn't work like that. You're able to change and to move on.
Yeah, it's not like you graduate school, you get one job, you stay at that job for 50 years, you retire. Like, it's not
you get your gold watch and then off you go. Like, it doesn't work like that anymore. So I think, would I go back to school now? Yeah, but probably not school. I still would have an extremely hard time if you sat me in a lecture and I had to listen to somebody. unless they were really great at talking, maybe. Like if they were very charismatic, if I could sit and watch them, yeah, I could probably be okay. But sitting still for me is no go, hands on. Send me to a house and I have to renovate, and we learn along the way of renovating this house. I mean,
when you take that wall down and go, oh, look at that.
Oh, that was wrong. That was supporting wall.
We talk about supporting walls before we take walls down now.
Yes. I think your entire life is for learning.
Ooh.
So I don't think a school is a necessity for learning on certain things. I think that learning is an everyday thing. Like this whole podcast, no idea. But, months ago, if we said make a podcast, I'd be like, I don't know what we're doing. How do we do that? Like,
I might have to throw in that we don't know what we're doing. We just sit here and talk. Zoe does it all.
That's good. Thank you to Zoe. But it's the idea of like how watching her set everything up. But I mean, I just think that kind of stuff, I think you need to learn your whole life. I think it's important. It's fun. Like learning is much more fun when you're interested in the subject.
I agree. I mean, I don't disagree with the eternal students.
Mm-hmm.
I had an eternal student in my first college course. I thought it was really cool because I didn't dislike school the way that you did.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hate going specifically. I definitely had rough times and definitely had teachers that I didn't get along with. But I loved the idea that she was just going to school to learn continually.
I think it's neat. If you can do that, kudos to you.
Yeah.
That's great. That's not for everybody.
None of it's for everybody, but I think that's the point. We need to think more as an individual, less as a group mentality.
Yes. Agree.
Figure out what's best for us. Don't let the man keep you down.
Don't get me started on the man.
Do I need to stop saying that? Because it's 2 podcasts in a row where I said that. And in the next episode, all of the conspiracy theories. No, I don't think that it's unnecessary as an entirety.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is necessary in certain pieces.
Yes.
In certain courses and for certain people.
Correct.
It is the aspect of I'm just a little jaded from being told by my guidance counselor that I won't be anything because I can't sit through a math or science class. I am a little jaded by not using my college diploma and racking in a lot of debt.
Yes.
Yeah. And what will I do when my kids are that age and they ask or
who knows? I think maybe at that point, I think school might have changed a little bit, and even the perception on going to school might have changed a little bit at that point. And I think it also depends on what your kids end up doing for school.
Well, at the moment, one wants to be an NHL player and doesn't play one tiny bit of hockey.
Okay.
And the other one wants to be a veterinarian.
Okay. I mean, that's school right there.
That is a lot of school.
I would be
She actually has to go to school if she's
Yeah.
going to do that.
Yeah. I think she'll just be a dancer.
I think she'll just travel. She'll be one of those eternal students that's not actually in school. She's just traveling. She beats to her own drum.
Yes, she does. Middle child. Go middle child.
I know this is a big topic, and I know it can be a very split topic. So I definitely want to hear about it. I mean, we're not the be-all and end-all. We have our own sides of it. I'd love to hear what you think. Who is pro post-secondary education, just bar none? It is what it is. That is what we have to do as a society, like, for whatever reason. I'd love to know your reasons. So share that with us because I want to know that. And then I would love to hear the other side too. I feel like a conspiracy theorist right now, being like, down with the man, no more higher education. But it's not actually how I feel most of the time. Sometimes in certain situations. No, but I would love to know how many of you who are listening feel the same way. Like, is it a shift in society? Am I just going crazy in my old age?
No, I think it's all of the above. I mean, that's what I think too. So yes, send your comments and let's start a conversation about this. Maybe we aren't crazy. Maybe we are crazy.
Maybe we are crazy. There's no question. But maybe we're onto something.
It's true. Thanks for watching, guys.